Question number 1. One of your students does their best when you play games in class, such as a matching game with vocabulary cards. This student is then they're kinesthetic. This means that how they learn is best by... Let's do another question. Which of the following is an example of a good instruction? Please open your books to page 15 and do exercise number 3. Could you please do the exercise 3 on page 15? Taking a little bit of time, you've got a couple of students who are still looking for page 15. Maybe write it on the board. Give your instructions a couple of different ways. Next question. Which of the following would be a good warmer activity for a low intermediate class? Students read a one-page story in groups and answer 10 questions. Next. What is not a part of a good transition? The teacher is clear about what's happening next. The teacher connects the two activities. You don't want to do it quickly. Give your students time to adjust and tell them that it's going to be different. Let them completely finish up what they just did so that the next activity they're starting with a fresh mind. The teacher making the transition smooth. Now, this is pretty difficult. I'm not all... Next question. What is something you should do when grouping students? Put similar level students together. Always put the same students together. D. Mix the students by level and confidence, especially if you're frequently mixing them. You'll have some really effective group work. Welcome to Unit 6 review. We're going to go over a few questions to see what you can remember about assessment. First question. The purpose of summative assessment is to observe, give immediate feedback, assess student progress, or help students set goals. Take a second to think about it. Progress. There we go. A summative assessment is meant to see where a student started. Another question. An example of formative assessment would be a state test, a unit quiz about the past tense, a game about the past tense, or an essay using the past tense. And oh, it's not going to be this one, because this one incorporates the past tense, but a lot of other stuff too. A state test is a huge assessment. It says what the students have learned, what level are they? Well, it's got one specific goal, but it's still a unit quiz. You're grading your students on where they started and where they're ending. But a game about the past tense, that's formative. It's not really graded. You're just observing your students and what they've learned. When designing a final achievement test, you should use course outcomes, final achievement test. It's in the word, final. This is what you do at the end of a unit or a quarter or semester. So your final achievement test is going to be based on the course outcomes. What are students supposed to know by the end of the quarter or semester? An example of a proficiency test is a unit quiz, a final achievement test, the TOEFL, or a game in class. Think about what you remember about proficient. So that's our answer. A game in class is nothing like a proficiency test. It's a formative. When a student is telling a story for fluency practice and they make a mistake, you should correct them immediately or wait until they're done and correct them. What do you think? Practice is to wait until they're done and then correct them. And do it gently. Don't say, yeah, that was great, but you got that wrong. Because then your student's going to be like, Question 1. When starting to design a course, the first thing to think about is the textbook. So, ding! The context of the class. What are your students going to be like? What kind of space do you have? Resources. Backward design starts with the evidence, unit titles, results of the or the lesson plans. Try to remember what you know about backward design. When you start from the end, knowing what your students have to be able to do, then you can build from. Next question. When choosing a textbook, you should always use the easiest textbook. What do we need from a textbook? Well, it depends on where you are, who your students are, and your teaching styles. All right, you see an activity in the textbook that you don't think would be helpful for your students. You should, what? Do it anyway. It's in the textbook. Modify it. You have to use it. Skip it. If it's not helpful, then why do it? Think about it for a sec. Don't. Skip it. I see things all the time that I'm like, nah, my students wouldn't like that. So I skip them. I do something different. The same idea, but something more engaging. Unit 8 review. Let's go over a few questions to see what you can remember and how well prepared you are for the test. Mari is reading a short story for fun. She is engaging in extensive or intensive reading. Think about it for a sec. We're looking for that extensive reading experience that's just providing reading fluency. Connotation is what? A lexical item, emotional associations to a lexical item, the words used around a lexical item, or formality and informality of a lexical item. An English language learner may not know that there's a more positive way to say something. So be aware when you're teaching vocabulary that your students understand the connotation. When should they use it? When should they not?